You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, episode 160.4, Will Rutherford's 5 Questions That Need Answers. Today, Will answers questions about the NFL, the Colts, the Pacers, the St. Louis Cardinals, and the Chicago Blackhawks, with guest David Rutherford, Will's dad.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengels.
So in order to attract the great David Rutherford to this conversation, I had to promise that we would talk Colts, Pacers, Cardinals, and Blackhawks, the teams that he's interested in. So making his return appearance to the Central Indiana Sports Report and his first appearance on Will Rutherford's 5 Questions That Need Answers is Dave Rutherford. Welcome, Dave.
Well, thanks, Greg. I'm excited to be here.
Are you?
We're going to talk some sports here.
We're going to talk some sports. Welcome back, Will.
Yeah, thank you.
Will and I, of course, were just on Sunday night talking about the wrap-up of the conference championships. Let's talk about that a little more now. A lot of the conversation is the Chiefs get help from the officials. I'm a person who never likes to make officials an excuse, but they seem to get every call. Will, thoughts?
Oh, yeah, I mean, we can sit here and say it's not an excuse, but literally every time that they need to be benefited from a call, it typically goes in their favor, whether that is some mystical superpower above us or it is an initiative from the league to ensure that they are promoted. I don't know what that answer to that question is, but it certainly is not just a coincidence at this point. There's got to be something more to it.
You know, I struggle to believe that the NFL would be fixing games for any team, so I'm going to throw that out of the window. But I do feel like sometimes just coincidentally, it feels like they are protected. A hit on Mahomes is an automatic unsportsmanlike conduct call, it seems like. Those same types of hits on other quarterbacks sometimes seem to they get away with. So I don't know. I will say, as I was telling Will, this weekend, until they're dethroned, they're the champions. And teams are going to have to bring their very, very best. Whether they're getting some extra help or not, they're going to have to bring their very, very best. And the Bills didn't quite bring enough.
We've been saying all season that the Chiefs were inevitable because they have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, two very likable guys, at least before they started winning all the time. Yeah. Is the backlash against the Chiefs now that they are winning all the time, or is it partly that they're seen as being protected, as you said, as Will said, by the NFL?
I mean, I go back to, we watched. It would have been week 12, week 11, week 12, and we watched Trevor Lawrence get literally, murdered on national television for all lacks, right. He was murdered, and then the conversation the next day is, oh well, he slid too late. But if that conversation were Mahomes, if it were Mahomes that same hit was done on, and Mahomes is the reason that other quarterbacks are taking the abuse of those hits, because he likes to do the little theatrics. He likes to take advantage of wherever he can take a lapse in the rules, a judgment of a player, maybe extend out a little, maybe linger a little bit on the sideline before he gets hit. And other quarterbacks take the consequence of that. And, they're all professionals. They all get it. But there is something to be said of the standpoint of these rules and stuff, are called in favor of Mahomes. Now, I will say he takes advantage of them to the best of his ability, as any competitor would, but he benefits so much from it, and that's what people don't like. It's not the fact that the Chiefs win. People hated the Patriots because they won, and people said the Patriots cheated, and there were some instances of the Patriots maybe doing some espionage and illegal things they shouldn't be doing. But the same issue that happened with the Michigan sign stealing scandal, the only problem isn't that the other 130 FBS Division I football teams aren't trying to do the same thing. The problem is that Michigan was just a lot better at it than the rest of them were. And so Michigan suffers the backlash from it. It's not that not everyone's doing it. It's just they benefit from it, and so people get mad, and they don't like that. And that's why they didn't like the Patriots. People don't like the Chiefs because it just feels blatant, just blatantly obvious that it just feels like week in, week out, everything goes their way. And it just, when's it end? I mean, when does it end?
I was also going to bring up the Patriots as well, and their dynasty. It seemed like they always got the benefit of things as well, and they always, winning becomes hated amongst the league. So at the end of the day, they still have Super Bowl championships to hang their hat on, and so do the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'll stand by the fact that until they're dethroned, they're the champions. I do think they have their match coming. I think the Eagles are formidable. I think they have a very potent offense that have lots of strong players in lots of different directions. And I think it's going to be a shootout. But again, until Kansas City loses, they're the champions.
We're gonna wait and make our predictions next week. We'll let Mr. Rutherford here make his decision or make his prediction because I assume he's not going to be back next week. So if you'd like to make yours, but I'm going to ask Will this question: okay. What percentage chance do you give the Eagles?
Oh, I think this is a 50. I think this is a coin flip based on how they performed last week. I think that they are going to give Kansas City's offensive line issues. I think that defensive line is very formidable. Kansas City's running backs are not playing particularly well, and a lot of the Commanders' Washington's success in that game running the ball wasn't Brian Robinson. It was Jaden Daniels getting out on the edge, and you're not going to have to devote a hat to Mahomes running the football. You're not going to be able to do that. So
I need 10 push-ups from you for saying that word again.
No, I'm not doing push-ups.
And then don't ever say that word on this podcast again. What do you think? You said shootout, so you're thinking high scoring?
I do. I think they're both solid offenses. Not that they don't both have some defensive capabilities as well, but I think this is going to be a high offensive affair.
I think you guys are both crazy for thinking the Eagles can win this game.
Their defensive line's the best. Their defensive line's the best.
They won the JV tournament. Is what they did.
I mean, they did.
The three best teams in the NFL are in the AFC.
We've said it the whole year that the AFC, that whoever comes out of the AFC is going to win, and I do hold that to be true. But I think the way that Philadelphia played, they have enough moxie that they're going to really be rolling after kind of beating the living dog crap out of a division opponent. I mean, who they just embarrassed. I mean, that was just an embarrassing game.
I definitely like their chances better now than I did a couple weeks ago, especially with those defensive backs playing so well. And the Eagles' propensity for making defensive plays and turning it into turnovers and points. Mahomes doesn't turn the ball over very much, but it's a pretty special defense.
I say 50-50 because of that defensive line. I think Kansas City's O-line is very vulnerable, and I don't imagine a scenario where Kansas City is not going to be able to effectively run the ball. They're going to have to air it out, and I like the Eagles in coverage. I think the Eagles can cover any athlete that the Chiefs have right now. I do. The best athlete on the field will be DeJean and Kenyon Mitchell.
We know how the Chiefs are going to offensive line is going to handle the Eagles' defensive line, and that's because they have the greatest game planner probably in the history of the NFL, and he'll figure out a way to get help on those guys, and he'll figure out a way to make it happen. And this is what I keep saying every week. They're inevitable because, although I did finally say the Bills, because I thought the Bills looked special, and it wouldn't have surprised me either way, but they're just better than everybody else at what they do. Those two guys are just better. Reed's better at coaching. Mahomes is better at quarterbacking.
Well, and I'm with you as well in terms of 3 weeks ago. I mean, I would have said the Eagles had no chance at all, but they've been pretty good. They've been pretty darn good in the playoffs, and they have the weapons. I think they have the weapons to compete. So I don't know that I'll bet against the Kansas City Chiefs because for the same reasons you just mentioned. They are still the champions, and they're going to have to be dethroned. But I think the Eagles are pretty good.
I mean, I still hold the opinion. I said it, and I will double down. The Bills lost that game. The Chiefs didn't win it. The Bills did everything they could to lose that game.
We've been saying that for 2 years now.
They did it. They lost that game. If Joe Brady, if he's listening for whatever reason, stumbles upon this podcast, it was just one of the most atrocious second half play calling I've ever seen in my life.
That's what I'm saying. The Chiefs staff is better than yours. That's just the way it is. Just like Belichick's used to be better than everybody else's. His staff was just better than theirs, and that's why the Chiefs are winning again.
And that could be the very reason why the Chiefs win this time, too. Because on the field, it may be 50-50. Off the field, it may not be.
Kellen Moore's a good offensive coordinator. He's not Andy Reid, but he's he's been good everywhere he's gone. And Vic Fangio's, he's not Steve Spagnuolo. The Chiefs literally have 3 Hall of Fame coaches. Tobe, the special teams coordinator, a top special teams coordinator in league history. Spagnuolo is gonna, on his way to his 4th Super Bowl.
And they've all done this. That's the other thing is the Chiefs have, they keep doing this year after year.
Now the Eagles have been there though too. This is a large majority of that team.
I know. I'm saying though, but the Chiefs keep going back year after year. The more experience you have, the better at dealing with the Super Bowl week you get. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so how much closer are the Colts to winning a Super Bowl after hiring a new defensive coordinator? It's like that's going to be the solution.
They needed to clean house a little more. Unfortunately, they didn't do that. So
we're going to mock them until they prove us wrong. Colts, at least that's how I'm going to handle it.
Colts playoff chances it's less than 20% next year.
I am hoping with the new defensive coordinator that they will try to invest in the defense a little bit. If they're going to bring a new coordinator in, then he needs to have some say in some of the personnel that are going to be on that side of the ball. And so if he does get a little bit of that first year grace of, we're going to get you what you want, we could be surprised. But there's just so many holes on this team that to say they're going to be able to fill them all, and
not a single place on the field that they can't upgrade. And I can't remember the last time I've said that about the Colts. Even the offensive line can upgrade.
And while it's not the strongest division, I think all those teams in the division are probably likely going to get better. And so now
And Houston is a level and a half above the Colts right now.
I disagree with that. The separation between those two, the separation between all 4 of those teams isn't much.
The Texans are going to be very good next year.
They obviously got beat up there a little bit there in the second half of the season, and injuries kind of made a big.
They had a couple of major holes, but they have a roster full of very good players.
But the sad reality is the Colts were really 2 games away from winning the division. And I agree that I don't think that they're in the same league right now with the Texans. When you have injuries and the NFL has injuries,
I think that was Houston's biggest problem too this year.
Well, they fired their offensive coordinator, who they had absolutely zero business firing. That is, I think that if anything
that could set them back.
I think that's going to set them back, and I don't think it's going to benefit them at all. There was absolutely no reason until that offensive line gets better. They're not going to get better. Stroud cannot. We saw this. We saw this with Andrew Luck. We saw it with Trevor Lawrence. When these young quarterbacks, when they get the crap beat out of them these first 2 or 3 years, it comes back to bite teams in the butt later on. You kick that can down the road and say we're going to wait to invest in the offensive line until it's the last piece that we need. We've got this young quarterback. It doesn't work like that. You got to protect these quarterbacks. Otherwise, they're going to be 25. They're going to have concussion, shoulder, knee, ankle, just issues because they're constantly getting hit. And they're getting every defensive player's best lick, best shot. You're getting exposed. You're getting hit in exposed areas. You're not typically protected. You're vulnerable. You're defenseless in most cases. It's not like a receiver or a running back where you're bracing for contact, you're prepared. You're getting hit and you're getting flatlined every time you touch the turf.
Part of that is the young quarterback learning how to play with what he's been given. the longer he gets used to that. Somebody said, I think it was Bill Simmons, how did Buffalo's offensive line get so good so fast when it was so bad last year's? The coaching staff learned how to use them. They're not that much better of players. The coaching staff used their strengths to their advantage. And really, that's when that's a way to get when you change coaches, a way to get better a lot faster.
Well, we saw, last year, 2 years ago, Tampa Bay's had the worst rushing offense in the league, and this year they're top 5. They have Liam Cohen, and Liam Cohen gets hired by Jacksonville. Jacksonville's run game will be better now. They're going to be a better team because if they're not better anywhere else, they will run the ball better because they'll have better offensive scheme. And what I think is so funny is that Slowick, his first year, couldn't run the ball at all. They didn't have a good running back. Then they bring Joe Mixon, and all of a sudden they're a great running offense. But the passing struggles a little bit, so now we fire him. It was just it's one of those decisions that's going to come back to bite DeMeco Ryans in the ass a little bit, in my opinion. You're playing with house money. You think, we can, the grass is not always greener. Just because you got rid of him doesn't mean you're going to bring in the next guy and he's going to be any better.
Yeah, I guess bringing it back to the Colts for a second, I do hope that that there's been those conversations that like this is it. You've got one more chance to build this team.
I would sure hope so.
And if those conversations are had, maybe there'll be a little bit stronger off-season pursuit to improve the team. Yeah. So, you can't keep doing the same thing that you're doing and expect different results because you're not going to get them. So I am hoping that some of those conversations, despite the fact that I probably would have moved on now, I would have moved on. At least with Ballard, he would have not come back. He's had 8 years to build this roster, and he's done nothing to do that. I am hopeful that maybe some of those conversations have been had that will put his butt in the hot seat, and now he will really work a little harder at trying to build a team. So time's going to tell, but the Colts have a lot to do. Yeah, they've got a lot of work to do this off season.
Since that draft of Quentin Nelson and Leonard and that draft where he had Braden Smith. Since that one draft, it's been pretty embarrassing.
He got Taylor and Pittman in the second round in the one draft, that was a good draft. They've both been impact players, but it's and to carry off what he said, we say the Colts offense has could upgrade everywhere. I think they could upgrade at a one receiver and a tight end, and outside of that, I think you're in a position where, same as we said this year, how good Anthony Richardson is, how good this team is. If Anthony Richardson comes out and he's transformed and takes that next leap forward, similar to how Josh Allen did going into year 3, I think you're looking at an offense that could be really, really good. Now, with that said, if he's the same Anthony Richardson he's been, you're looking probably at 8 and 9 again. You're looking at 7 and 10. You're looking at 500. That's just the reality of it.
Now, I agree. I agree with all that. I do think I'm almost less concerned about Ballard's drafting ability and more concerned about his free agency, bringing in free agents.
His lack of activity.
He sits on his hands, and I don't know if that's Irsay not wanting to spend the money and here's your budget and you got to go with it. Very similar to the St. Louis Cardinals that we might talk a little bit about later, but it's like you got to sometimes spend money, to get the players that you want to transform and fill the holes.
Well, the philosophy
they rely too much on the draft to do that, and the draft's a hit or miss for a lot of people.
There's a philosophy in the NFL among a lot of general managers that free agents don't win games. They're usually on the second half of their career when you sign them to a contract. And that's true when you're talking about star players. But when you're talking about you've got to fill some holes, fill some holes. For the love of... They did nothing with... What they had, 5 or 6 holes last year? Nothing at corner, nothing at safety, nothing at linebacker. Those are huge missing pieces. And you're right. That's exactly the problem. The drafting has been bad, but not as bad as.
I mean, if you're an offensive coordinator, if you're a general manager, if you get 4 starters from a draft class, you feel good. You get 4 starters from a draft class that impact your team for 8 years.
Oh,
That's a
great
that's a
class.
glaring success. That's a huge success. I mean, most of the time you're going to have 7 picks. I mean, we're talking about a little over 50% hit rate. I mean, that's just not where I agree with that. I think that the free agency, I mean, Philadelphia, 2 best players on their team offensively and defensively were free agents. They signed them this year. They are free agents that were signed this year, Saquon Barkley and Zach Bond. And look at the difference. I mean, you're talking about a player of the year candidate, and Zach Bond, a finalist, and Saquon, who, if it wasn't just a quarterback award, would be the MVP.
Well, he probably will be offensive player of the year.
I mean, so that's what we're talking. I mean, you can build, and the Colts aren't going to go get. They've got Jonathan Taylor, so they're not going to go get a Jonathan Taylor. So it can't just be tomato, but they can go get a second corner, a third corner, a second safety, better. Any linebacker has got to be better than what the Colts have had,
or at least a cover linebacker.
Yeah. Good Lord.
They can't just continue to sign their own guys. That we've seen what they do.
I mean, yeah.
It's time to really, make a change and personnel on the field, and that's going to take some big signings other than just working in the draft.
All right, the last 3 questions are all going to be fill in the blank. All right, we'll start with Mr. Rutherford on this one, rather than Little Rutherford. Fill in the blank. The best the Pacers can do if they don't make a move is blank.
I'm going to go with conference championship game or the series. I think they don't go to the finals.
So do you like that plan, or would you rather make a move this year and try to win it this year when it looks like it could be had?
I think you have to go. You have to make the move. I mean, this is what you have right now. You've got a team that is capable of contending for it all. You have to go for it. You may not get that chance again.
If they make no moves, they can be in the finals.
Okay, so theoretically they could win it all.
I think they theoretically.
Because if they get there, they're capable.
I think they theoretically can win it all without any adjustments. I think their team is good enough.
My answer is fringe contender. I think if they don't make a move, the best they can do is fringe contender. Could possibly win it if everything went right, but on the fringe. All right, question number 4. Fill in the blank. If everything goes perfectly, the St. Louis Cardinals can finish blank in the NL Central.
Wow, that's an interesting question. I think if everything goes well, the team can be better than people think they're going to be. And honestly, the NL Central is not very good. So I'll say if everything goes well and the young players develop and they get production out of those guys, they can win the division.
You agree, Will?
I think 90 wins and a wild card, in a wild card.
Well, that's even better than he thinks.
Show
your work.
I think 90 wins and they're a wild card. I still think the Brewers will be good. They have shown that they can make nothing. I think Bryce Terrain will be
Every
better.
time I think they're not going to be good,
I think Jackson Churia will be better. Yelich, if he's healthy, I think Milwaukee is the clear front runner to me in that division. But I think the Cardinals can, just because I think the other 3 teams are bad. I think the Cardinals can be a wild card team. They were above 500 last year, and I don't see any reason why they are going to be worse this year than they were last year.
I'm excited to see what they can do with the reset idea. This is really something that they've needed to do for a few years now, is kind of reset. don't think that they can be World Series contenders or even getting to the World Series at this point with the team that they have. But quite frankly, I don't know that anybody can compete with the Dodgers. So
once you get in a series, you'd never know.
At the end of the day, I think they can be better than what they're projected to be if their youth capitalizes and makes that next step. And if they can do that and get some experience this year, and then maybe fill the holes that in places where maybe the guys didn't develop like they wanted to, this team could be really, really, really good in 2 to 3 years. But I think it's a wait and see approach if they develop or not. If they don't develop, they could finish last in the division.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, they're. I think they're 2 to 5. They could be anywhere in 2 to 5, in my opinion. And you know what? I went at Joe Brady, and I said to Dad I was going to do this, and I want to have a conversation with John Mozeliak, and he's not going to hear this. And in fact, I want you to tag the Cardinals when you post this tonight, because I just want somebody to hear this. But Mo, I'm going to challenge you with this. What is your identity of this team? Do you want to contend, or do you want to let the young guys play? Do you want your payroll to be high, or do you want your payroll to be low? Because right now we're playing teeter-totter. We say, well, we want the young guys to play, but then we're going to keep 2 veterans on our team with expiring contracts who are probably not going to re-sign when we could get more young talent for them. Ryan Helsley and Eric Fetty, both of which value is probably never going to be higher than it is right at this moment currently as we're speaking. Do you want fans to be excited, or do you want fans to be disinterested? Because you say that the fans have a direct impact on the payroll of the team. However, you don't ever put out a product that the fans want to watch. So whose fault is it? Is it my fault that I don't want to go and spend, $300 on a day at the ballpark to watch a team that is middling and doesn't really want to compete? Or do I want to not pay any money and, you are a $6 billion valued franchise and you can't spend any more than $200 million on a team? So my problem with the Cardinals is we're in this identity crisis. We're in a midlife crisis where we say we want to be one thing, but then we kind of show that we want to be another. And in doing that, it's fostering mediocrity. And that's something that the St. Louis Cardinals have never been fine with, is mediocrity at all. It has never lived in my 21 years of life. The St. Louis Cardinals have never been content being mediocre, and right now they are. I would challenge the DeWitts, sell the franchise. If you don't want to reward the fans of St. Louis, who are the best fans in baseball, with a winning product, then sell the franchise and move on and go sell real estate and go sit on your hands and play bridge in Florida. Because I'm tired of a franchise that doesn't want to win. And I hope they hear it. And if this were an R-rated podcast, I'd have a lot more to say than that. But until the Cardinals decide what they want to be, they'll never be what they can be. And I've got a problem with it. I'm just going to say it. I've got a problem with Mozeliak. I don't think him leaving and stepping down as president of baseball operations is going to change anything. I don't know why. Now I'm even getting deeper in. We say, well, we're going to cut payroll because we want the farm system to get better. Well, why can't you have both at one time? Why can't you put a winning product and invest in your farm system? It makes zero sense to me. Absolutely zero sense. If I was the owner of a Major League Baseball team, the St. Louis Cardinals, the only team I'd ever want to own, okay, I would have zeros. I would claim $0 to make sure that they won, just like the Dodgers are doing, just like the Yankees are doing, just like the Mets are doing, just like all these franchises are doing, if they really want to win baseball games. And I just don't understand as an owner. You say you love the team, then love the team. Be a part of the team. But I can guarantee you that the Bush family, when they own this team, they would not be content with what's going on, and they shouldn't be. And St. Louis Cardinals fans shouldn't be happy. I mean, we're going to go to opening day, and fans are going to boo Mozeliak, and it's going to be loud. And last year I kind of felt bad for the guy, and this year I'm going to go and say it's kind of justified because you've kind of just done nothing with the opportunity that you've been given to reward one of the most baseball crazy cities in America.
Let's just say that Chris Ballard's offseason better be a lot better than what John Mozeliak's has been, because he's done absolutely nothing. Again, a guy that probably shouldn't still have his job. That's just where they are. And so. But I do think the reset was the right.
If they do show a nice reset, will you reconsider about him?
No, they haven't won enough. They've not won enough.
His passive approach, will you?
No, because they wasted 2 Hall of Famers and won 0 playoff series to show for, and that is an absolute travesty, an absolute embarrassment to a franchise and a city to have 2 Hall of Famers on your team at the same time, in quite literally the peak of both of their careers for a good while, and did nothing with it. It's just complete blasphemy. I have nothing good to say about John Mozeliak, and I have nothing good to say about Oliver Marmol either. Mike Schilt should have never been fired, and there's a reason the Padres are going to win 95 games and win a playoff series and contend to go to the NLCS. It's no secret.
And I hate to tell you guys, but the Cincinnati Reds will be winning the NL Central this year. Yes, they will.
They can't beat the Brewers.
We'll see. The Cincinnati Reds are going to be winning the NL Central this year. All right, let's go to another fill in the blank. We will start to see a future Stanley Cup champion in the Chicago Blackhawks by
2027.
Ooh, that's not good.
Still have a lot of players in college. Draft is working. Everybody they brought up so far has been successful. The young guys are taking over. I don't want to say that they're not winning, but they're showing a lot of flash. This is still an AHL roster. This roster is absolutely terrible.
But an AHL roster can show flashes.
No, an AHL can't.
A young roster, I'm saying. A young roster.
This team is, some of the guys, they wouldn't play in beer leagues in Canada. I mean, you're talking about a team full of scrubs, for the most part, outside of a few guys. And I'm fine saying that. I couldn't play hockey, and they are way better athletes at their sport than I could ever imagine being.
Let me put it to you like this. There was a time when the Pacers weren't very good, and they were a bunch of scrubs. Mm-hmm. And then Paul George suddenly started becoming that guy, and you went, oh, now I can see a future team here. That's more what I'm talking about. When can, by the end of this season, do you expect to start to see some of those pieces and go, oh, or maybe next year?
I think next year is the year that you see them take the leap forward. However, the scrubs will not be on this roster by the time they are competing again. And I will also like to caveat the fact that George Hill, Roy Hibbert, David West, Lance Stevenson, and Paul George was the best team of role players put together in a long time. Role players that gelled together. And the Blackhawks, they have the superstar. Connor Bedard is worth he is so legit. I mean, he is so good. And I know that people will argue and say that he hasn't played up to performance. I mean, he's playing with literal plumbers. He's playing with guys that would be building houses in Saskatoon right now if they weren't any better at skating. I don't know how you expect this guy to be Connor McDavid when he's playing with legit bums. I mean, even McDavid needed Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Even McDavid needed Leon Draisaitl. Austin Matthews needed, Willie Nylander. He needed Mitch Marner. Gretzky needed Moose. I mean, all of these elite, great, all-time talents, they need a player. I mean, I would say that an exception to that would maybe be Ovechkin, but he needed a great point man on the power play to sit at the left face-off circle and absolutely snipe past a goalie for 20-some years. I mean, so it's even different than the NBA. These star players need elite talent, and elite talent can elevate. I mean, Dad and I watched Patrick Kane in the prime of his career carry guys that just had absolutely no business even gracing the ice in the presence of the greatest American hockey player to ever lace him up. And yet he carried him to 75, 80-point weeks. He got Artemi Panarin paid. He got Artem Anisimov another contract. He got Dylan Strom's good now, but he was bad then. Alex DeBrincat, he made him worth a top 10 pick in the NHL draft. I mean, we're really talking about role players that these greats can elevate, but the greats still need greats with them to reach their highest potential.
Hockey, who cares really? I mean, that's kind of my take on it. Who really cares?
Until you get to the playoffs.
So.
All right. Well, let me ask you this. Growing up, you were a big IU basketball fan. Have you been paying attention? And if so, how disappointed are you?
It's depressing. It's depressing to see what's happened to IU basketball over the past 20 years, really. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I love Bobby Knight for the person that he was, but he clearly could win basketball games and brought a program that meant something to the fans and to the people and to the university. They flat out just cannot compete against anybody, and it's depressing to see.
Yeah, even as a Purdue fan, I hate it. It's been so long since IU and Purdue were both good at the same time, like really good. Like 1993 was the last time they were both in the top 15, I think. 1988 was the last time they were both.
A couple years ago.
The last time they both not in the top.
Hood
15.
Schifino and Trace Jackson Davis, those IU teams were ranked pretty high. Then Purdue was number 1 at that time. That was the.
Okay, they weren't truly a top 15 team though. That's what I mean. Back when they both were Big Ten contenders every year. And I would love to see those days again. My number one sports thing I want to see in my life is the Pacers win a championship. The number 2 thing I want to see in sports in my life is for IU and Purdue to be competing for championships again in college basketball against each other.
I mean, those were just some great times.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
Bob Knight, Gene Katie, those were just some great teams. The thing that again, not being a Purdue fan, so it's hard for me to root or say good things about them because I'm not a fan. But you have to respect what Purdue has done over the years, getting the absolute most out of the people they get. And I think they're obviously they're recruiting a lot better now than they probably used to. But at the end of the day, they always seem to get the most out of their roster. And IU has arguably more talent maybe on it, and they just can't.
At least more recruiting stars. They have more recruiting stars.
They can't get them to play. It just.
They're just not IU type players to me.
I'd love to intervene because I've got a lot of ill will really towards both of the schools. So I can
as a Ball State
be
guy.
completely objective when I say this. There is not a coach that gets more out of the talent that he recruits than Matt Painter. There's not a coach in the country that does more.
I think he's the best coach in the country. And
here's what I'm going to say. Here's what I'm going to say. That Purdue team that I had the absolute honor of watching getting beat by Fairleigh Dickinson in Columbus, Ohio, okay? I've never seen a collection of scrubs like that. I mean, I was calling Braden Smith a scrub. I was calling Fletcher Lawyer, Mason Gillis, Zach Edey, anyone that would listen. I was saying that team's bad. I was wrong. That team is good. All of those players are very good, and they still had no business losing to a 1 seed or a 16 seed. And so, but at the same time, you want to know why IU sucks? And IU fans ask this to themselves, why are we so bad? You want to know why they're so bad? Because they can't recruit in state. They like to go get these flashy, cool, cool. I'm on Instagram and I've got cool mixtapes. And
Purdue is getting Braden Smith.
You know what IU needs? They need a little corn in their diet.
Exactly.
They need to get some guys that actually know how to play ball.
Exactly.
Not a bunch of me's, a bunch of we's. And they don't do that. Trey Galloway, bum.
Exactly.
Bum. Guy is bad. Bad. You got blessed that Trace Jackson Davis turned out to be worth anything. You got blessed that Jalen Hood Schifino was good. And And that's the problem. IU fans are constantly, oh, it's always better. It's always better. I'm sure an IU fan would lay their life down for Tom Crean to be coaching the boys again. Archie Miller, terrible, absolutely miserable coach. Mike Woodson's even worse, shocking. I don't even know how that's possible because Archie Miller was one of the worst high elite talent Division I basketball coaches I've ever seen. That guy couldn't recruit me to go play cornhole at IU, let alone guys go play basketball. And then you've got Mike Woodson comes in here who doesn't know up from down when it comes to anything except standing on the sidelines like this. What's going on? Well, I don't know. I don't know what's going on, Mike. You know what's going on? You can't execute a pick and roll. We sit and play 3-man weave up at the minute line, and we just sit on our hands for the entire game. Yeah, we're sitting having fun singing Kumbaya on the corner, and then we're playing iso ball, and it doesn't work like that. You can't win like that in the Big Ten.
While Painter's players are moving the ball and getting better every single game.
Yep. Distributing the ball, you've got a guy that's constantly getting 8+ assists. I don't know the last time I saw an IU guy have even 5 assists. And I'm sure that that's an exaggeration. And Michelle, if you listen, will check me on that.
She'll agree with you. It's been bad for too long.
IU basketball is never going to be good until IU basketball wants to be IU again. And they want to be cool. They want to be flashy. They want to be this. They want to be that. But they don't want to win.
But they used to win with guys who were Hoosiers.
Yep.
Even if they were from Ohio, even if they were from Illinois, even if they were from Michigan, they were Hoosiers.
They get killed in in-state recruiting. I couldn't tell you the last time that IU got Mr.
Not getting
Basketball.
Braylon Mullins was such a bad. I mean he is so good, and he was down to UConn and IU, and that would change everything because he is that good.
Well, and the problem is that they don't have a coach that people want to go play for. They don't. I mean, I hate that. It sounds terrible to say. I'm sure Mike Woodson is an excellent man. I'm sure that he is somebody that you'd love. I've never had the benefit of meeting him, but as somebody that is analyzing the sport and trying to be critical, he's not a good coach, and you just can't expect to be a good team. I mean, even Dan Dockich took teams to the tournament. I mean, and he's a buffoon. I mean, Mike Woodson what is he? I I don't know. I'm getting worked up about it for no reason. I don't see an end in sight for him.
It's sad to me. It really is.
I mean, it is a tragedy, really, to see what's happened there. And, I think you've all said it. Until they get back to playing IU basketball and recruiting folks that have a heart for that kind of program, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. So it kind of goes back to all the GMs and the things we've talked about. I mean, you can't keep doing the same thing and expecting to get a different result. And
Matt Painter's always talking about recruiting Purdue guys. IU needs to identify IU guys.
And he does. And this will infuriate IU fans. Purdue is IU. Purdue is what IU wishes it was right now at this current moment. Purdue is exactly. They win. They get every in-state recruit. I mean, when you see a 3, 4, 5-star from the state of Indiana, where is he going? He's going to Purdue.
Purdue is what IU used to be.
Yeah,
IU used to be the team that could get the most out of the people they got. They're not getting that now, and Purdue is far exceeding them in that area.
I mean, I told Dad this. When they hired him, I said it's in the cards. Michael Lewis is going to win the MAC. IU is going to fire Mike Woodson, and Michael Lewis will go home where he belongs, and he will be IU's head coach. And
be a good thing,
I'm not sure the timeline is going to work out where Ball State's going to win the MAC for him to do that, but Mike Woodson's getting fired soon. And, I thought that was the storybook, and I said that the second it happened. I said, it's too good to be true. This is exactly what's going to happen, and it will be what needs to happen for both programs. I don't think that's the case anymore. I don't really know where IU goes from here. They're in this. I don't know. I don't think that there is a sight in their future where they're any better than they are now.
what coach are they going to get? I mean, who wants to come there right now? The program isn't at all-time low. Why would you? And I get it. It's got some tradition, and
you think you can lift it up? They pay you enough
for the same reason that Kurt Signetti will never have to pay for a drink at Kilroy's or the upstairs room again.
You come in and turn that program around, you're king.
I mean, you come in and you take it back to its former glory, and you are the guy. I mean,
and let's hope it happens.
Look at Jim Harbaugh.
No.
I mean, look at what Michigan was, and he went on a limb after he got fired from San Francisco and said, "I want to go be Michigan's head coach because I'm a Michigan man." And now, I mean, he's maybe Ann Arbor's favorite person ever. He could run for mayor tomorrow, and he'd win unanimously.
Thanks, guys, so much for your time. This has been a lot of fun. Mr. Rutherford, let's do this more often.
Absolutely.
And
thanks for having me on today.
We'll see you soon. Thank you so much to Will and David Rutherford for joining the Central Indiana Sports Report. And thank you for listening. Please go like, subscribe, or follow us at SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, or YouTube so you don't miss a single segment. And please tell a friend about the Central Indiana Sports Report. Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media and I Love Susie.